Good afternoon, and welcome to Lunch Out Loud, Finding Our Voices When Democracy is Challenged. This is a series bringing citizens, experts, students, and voters together to stay up to date on the latest developments in our democracy as we learn and prepare on how to face challenges. These webinars are sponsored by ACLU of West Virginia, Common Defense WV, NSAW WV, Rise Up WV, West Virginia Citizen Action Group, West Virginia Citizens for Clean Elections, and the West Virginia Faith Table. I'm Takaya Smith. I'm with the Young West Virginia Power Building Movement, and we have Ms. Natalie Tennant here joining us today. We'll also have some students coming in as well. Thank you for showing up for our Democracy Lunch Hour. This is an interactive Zoom, so feel free to put questions or comments in the chat. Today, I will be guiding our conversation as we welcome our students, Ms. Natalie Tennant, to our discussion. Our students will share some of their experiences and perspectives today as well. So before I get into it, I want to pass it to you, Natalie, and I just wanted to say just a little something before we fully got into it. I was actually telling Julie the other day that I was like, I'm a little bit like, I like fangirl Natalie a little bit because I, like when you first started getting on Zooms and things, I was like, is that like, oh, that's like Natalie Tennant, like the one. So when I was younger and I would be getting like dressed, ready for school, and I would see your name like come across the screen because I always watch the news in the morning. And when I saw that you were like getting on our Zooms or coming to our rallies or events, I was like, that's so interesting. Like that's really happening. So I think it's clear to say that your commitment to a fair and free democracy goes beyond a public office. And I just want to personally thank you for everything that you're doing to strengthen and expand ballot access. So with that being said, I want to kick it over to you.
Thank you very much. That makes me feel good. I'm glad that you were listening. When Eric and I, my husband and I, did the morning news, and someone had a birthday and they turned 18, we always did say, "Go get registered to vote." So you're probably still too young before we start. I mean, I've been now in this industry of public service for more than 20. It is 20 years. Now, I began running for Secretary of State in 2003 and had the opportunity to serve for those 8 years. And I understand the fangirl thing too, because I do it too. Here in West Virginia, when I see some of these names, when I see Julie Archer, but we work with each other. And I think that what's so cool about that is that we do have this great respect, and we know how difficult the work is and how important it is. So then when we see someone in person or work on Zoom with each other, it's like, wow, they're putting their heart and soul into it. I'm putting my heart and soul into it. And we're gonna make a difference here. And that's, Takaya, we turn to you a lot because you have the connection to young people working so closely. I've done a lot of work with high school students and young people. And actually next week, I'm going to go speak, I think it's Elkview Elementary School, and talk a little bit. So it's always important to keep connected. And I just think it's important too. I mean, it's who I am. It's who we are. It's not just Natalie, the TV reporter, Natalie, the Secretary of State. I think it's important for all of us. And I got some of that from my parents too, when they would take me to the polling place and I would get to see all these people that we knew. And then even back then, my dad would let me go in and there would be people who, and I'll tell you who it was. My dad's gone and Alan Mollahan's out of office. My dad would go in and I said, "Dad, you missed that. You didn't vote there." Well, Alan Mollahan rarely had any competition. And I said, "Dad, you didn't vote for him." He's like, "Oh, I don't want him to think everybody's for him. It'll make him work harder." So those little things help to develop who I am. And Takaya, would be interesting sometime to hear what drives you too. And I think it's so important that it's 2023 right now. So what you're doing now in 2023 and not 2024, like we are building it all up to be ready. It's, you know, you're not doing anything last minute. And I'm just proud to have the opportunity to continue it, even not in the Secretary of State's office. I do some work with the Brennan Center for Justice, and it's a national group. So I get to work across the country and get ideas and share ideas and steal ideas. And whether I bring them to West Virginia or pass them on to New Hampshire or Arizona, I think it's good. We can get into some of that if you want to, or you can go to the students, whatever you want. And I'll tell you what, you know, we can talk about some of the things that we've done within the Secretary of State's office when I was there that we can continue to build off now. It just depends on where you want to go to next.
Definitely. No, I think we all have our role, and it definitely just reinforces that we are not in this alone. We are so much stronger together, and we have to take it step by step, because it didn't take us a day to get here, and it won't take a day to get to the progress that we're trying to make. So we're just going to keep on pushing for sure. Yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is so important. I keep books up here, and this is a Michael Waldman book. He's the president of the Brennan Center for Justice, and he will continue to remind the advocates and the employees who are amazing people at the Brennan Center. You know, it's part law firm, part think tank, part advocacy, and he'll remind them, as he does in his book, The Fight to Vote, that, you know, the Voting Rights Act, it wasn't one time and it was passed. It took a lot of struggle throughout the years. And just as the Freedom to Vote Act that we all became close on in 2021 and 2022, you know, it's going to pass sometime. It will pass, and it may even be in 2025. Who knows? But we're not giving up, and we can't give up. And we'll pull more people in as they realize how important it is too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think young people are ready to be hopeful. You know, I think sometimes the negative can inspire people, but I think young people are like, okay, enough of the negative. I need something to believe in. I need to be empowered by what's possible. So, you know, it's all about perspective for sure. I wanted to share a little bit about what I've been doing and kind of where I'm coming from this with this work. So I have connected with young voters across the state at high schools, colleges, and disenfranchised communities who all share the same sentiment. They want to be active participants in the systems impacting our daily lives. Since 2020, I have connected with students firsthand and seen their willingness to show up even in some of the most trying times. Young voters who believe that a more equitable, safe, and inclusive West Virginia is possible through the power of their vote and showing up. We are working diligently to ensure that our young people are supported in this process. Today, we are also going to get into some of the barriers young people face in our electoral process and what we've done to push for reform. In 2020, we went from county to county. Some of those counties were Berkeley, Kanawha, Cabell, Mercer, Marion. We really spread out as much as we could. 2020 was a big year, you know, federally and at the local level. And we connected with West Virginians who were unapologetic about how they wanted voter reform. Folks from all backgrounds joined forces as we pushed for the expansion of early voting days, same-day registration, restoration of voting rights for those with felony convictions, and transparency with campaign finances. These are just some of the things that we did. through like kind of where Young West Virginia started its electoral work. We went door to door. We canvassed. We were at every event we could possibly find throughout the summer, and festivals, concerts even. We just did everything that we could at colleges, of course, to make sure that we were engaging and putting a voice behind what we were standing by, which was, comprehensive voter reform. So it was just a really great time, and I think it sparked something that we are continuing, to this day.
And can I tell you something else, Takaya? You talked about it. Enough with the negativity. It's now time for hope and promise and expectations and what can be. And when we see it, the rest of us, I always feel like I'm a student anyway. Whoever I'm among is how I feel. But when we see it, when we see students, I mean, that fires us up. I see Sally on here talking about that. You don't know how much, because it gives us hope too. And it's like, yeah, we owe it also to the students. And I think my having a 21-year-old who is coming to terms, and I just hear the way she talks, and it's like, wow, she's getting it. She's fired up. She's pissed off. And wow, I have to make sure as the big I, all of us have to make sure we are there and standing up. And I'll tell you something, and I need your help, and I need the students' help to make sure I can say this, till I get it to a concise way of showing. I was all about, in my time as Secretary of State, and we can talk about this a little bit, the advances that I made sure we had when it came to voter registration. First, the ability to transfer electronically the information back to the county clerk so they could register people. Then online voter registration and AVR. Like, I went to the Brennan Center back in 2017 as someone who was pushing automatic voter registration. And now, partly because of 2020, all the work that you talk about, and we should even get into the vote by mail. And when I talked to a lot of the students and wanted automatic voter registration, they're like, yeah, that's really important because, we move a lot, and we go and change our driver's license. The, government should be able to keep up. And that's really what it's all about, an efficient, automated voter registration. But then I've always felt that same-day voter registration was so important. And now I think it's almost even more important, one, for young people, and two, more important than automated voter registration. And here's why. And I know some students will be popping in and out, and I really want them to help me make this analogy. I didn't know that I liked Taylor Swift as much as I did. As much only because it was the big thing over the first half of this year, right? When I don't even know when our concert started, but June starts coming around, and she's having 2 concerts in Pittsburgh. And actually, it was last year this time. And I didn't think my daughter was a huge Taylor Swift fan. So last year at this time, I didn't realize what you had to do. Everybody was getting in a queue, and they, on this particular day in November, I think it was, they're all sitting at their computers. And I would walk by people like, what are you doing? Oh, I'm waiting in line to get Taylor Swift tickets. I'm waiting in line to get Taylor Swift tickets. I'm like, oh, okay. I'm not going. My daughter's not that much into it. That's November. Then comes around June. As I said, she's been with her roommates for the last 6 months. They're talking about all these concerts that are taking place, people trying to get tickets for it. Well, June comes around, and she's in Pittsburgh, which is near West Virginia. And I'm like, okay, well, let's get tickets. I go online to try to get tickets, but I can't. And do you know why? Hang on. I want to see if you know why. You're muted.
Was it sold out?
Not necessarily. I was not a verified fan. And I'm like, what the heck is a verified fan?
You needed that.
That's what you had to sign up for back in November. And I'm like, wait a minute. this is like voter registration. It's like I didn't get registered back in November, so now I can't vote
You're
in
gonna miss
June, and
out
now I
now.
can't go. And I'm like, that's a ripoff. That's not fair. I couldn't even figure out the Ticketmaster thing. And I'm like, this is exactly, I wasn't excited in November about it, but I kept hearing all of the great things that she does, all of the excitement, what people are doing, that she writes her own songs, that my daughter wants to go. Doesn't it sound like a campaign? Doesn't it sound like you're
It's a
starting to
campaign of its own.
right,
Yes, yes.
but it sounds like a campaign, and people aren't like, they're not thinking about it 8 months ago. They're thinking about it when election day is coming up, like November 7th
Absolutely.
in Kentucky or New York or some of these places. And it's like, dang, now they can't vote. Now I know what it feels like. I know my stuff when it comes to voter registration. I know nothing about verified fan and getting my tickets to a Taylor Swift concert when I wanted to go. I was just going to go with my daughter and hang out and listen to it from the parking lot. So that's, you see how like everybody gets that. The students get
Yep.
that. We just need these policy and these politicians, I guess, who I used to be, but I'm all for it. That's the problem. They don't want I mean, I know a lot about Taylor Swift now. Let me vote. You see
Yeah,
what I mean?
the thing about that is like the excitement and the willingness ideally, should be enough. Or I guess one way to look at that is that we definitely don't want to put obstacles in, when it's already new, and if they're willing to show up, like let's help them engage.
Yes. And that's what some people will say. And this is when, if I ever get back on Hoppy Kercheval's show again, this is what I'm going to say to him, because he's against automatic voter registration. Oh, people shouldn't get registered to vote unless they really want to. All right. Well, you really sound like a proponent for same-day voter registration, because if someone shows up at a polling place, that tells me they're intentional to vote.
Yes.
So you don't want to have automatic voter registration? Let's have same day, because then that proves exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, there's no harm in that. No, not at all.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. And anytime we can bring pop culture into this, I'm into it. Well, I'm going to shift gears for a second, because we definitely want to welcome, youth voices to this conversation always. Ryan, I am going to pass it to you, and we just want to hear a little bit about where you're coming from. Ryan is coming from class, as students do, and so I'm going to pass it to you.
Hello, my name is Ryan Kirkpatrick, and as Takai mentioned, I'm a student at West Virginia State University studying business agriculture and business administration. To me, it's very important that students go out and vote, because we are kind of the embodiment of the future, and it's really important for us to go out and voice those actions so we know what we're going to be dealing with and taking on as well in the future. And once again, as a student, we tend to move around a lot, which makes registration and meeting deadlines difficult, which is why we're pushing for, the same day voter registration. And thank you guys for taking the time and listening to me. I truly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, Ryan, can I ask him a quick question? Because
absolutely,
this is why this is so good to Kaya, because, Natalie can sit here and talk all she wants as an expert here, but you'll learn it. And that's, I had that opportunity last fall when I was doing my fellowship at Harvard, and with students every single day, and trying to hear, like, they corrected me on some things that we thought we had. Where are you registered to vote, Ryan?
Yes,
how difficult or easy was it?
I am registered to vote, and actually, I did have difficulty. I had to go back and register to vote twice. I went to vote for an election. I can't remember exactly which one it was, but the first time I went there to the polling place, and they told me that like I didn't exist, even though I had a card and I had information because I had done it previously at the DMV. I had to go back to the courthouse. Well, not the courthouse, the little office that's on the corner, figure out, put in a new kind of voter registration application where you verify your address and stuff like that. And so, yeah, I had difficulty myself, but I am registered to vote now. So, yes.
That's interesting. So you must have tried to early vote. Is that what you were doing?
No, it wasn't early vote. It was actually election day for, I can't remember the election, but it was election day, and I went there after, receiving my card, because I was like, I updated my driver's license, and then they have a box where you can click like, oh, register to vote. I registered to vote, got it in the mail, and then I went to the polling place, and it wasn't an actual valid voter ID. So I had to go back and do it once again.
That's interesting. It makes me think of the way that we know that a lot of voters are purged from the, voting rolls. And I know that there's been a couple of folks who are like, no, I know my high school registered me, or I know I was registered, but they're saying that I'm not, and they don't find out until they go to vote. And unfortunately, like, so sometimes you can get kicked off, they can purge your registration, and you'll need to do it again, which is one thing that we've kind of, had real concerns about too. I mean, we've had people kind of in these advocacy spaces that have realized like, oh, I know Karen Williams, she was saying, and Karen Williams she is a pioneer in our community. For sure. And so when she found out her son was actually purged, and she was like, she's like, I told him get registered immediately. But that's why we check when folks are like, no, I'm good, I'm already registered to vote. It's like, listen, it never hurts to check.
And that's, you can go, it's as simple as putting your name in and your birth date. And sometimes, I mean, people realize that, oh, I know my friend's birth date. I'm going to go in and check and see if they're registered. And that's a good thing. I mean, that's, voter registration is public anyway. So it's not like you're sneaking around, but yeah, I mean, use it for yourself, use it for your family. If they say, oh, I don't know, I think I'm registered, well, just go say, David Tennant, I know his birthday. I'm going to check and see. And it will tell you where your polling place is too. So that helps out a lot.
Yeah, definitely. It just really never hurts to check. And it takes like 30 seconds. There's no, like, you can go to govotewv.com, and it's the fourth one down. I think Vitria has joined us. So give me one moment as yep. It's in the chat also, govotewv.com.
Yeah, and it's yellow highlighted. And when you look at some of that, that was there before I was Secretary of State. The track your absentee ballot is very important too. That was one reform that we put in there.
Yeah, thank you. Well, thank you so much. And I am going to actually share, Vitria is going to share a little bit about what we did yesterday. We actually just had a democracy event, Don't Go Starve Democracy, at Fairmont University. So I'm going to pass the mic to Vitria.
Hello, everyone. My name is Vitria Foster, and I am the president of Zeta Phi Beta. So yesterday, what we got to do was partner up with Young WV. Our Black Student Union on campus as well joined us for the event, and we helped students get engaged and get involved with voter registration. So we signed them up to get registered because a lot of people actually weren't registered. And then the ones that were registered, we had them set up a plan of whether they were going to vote early or vote on registration day. And then we just kind of looked up their polling locations for them because a lot of people didn't know their polling locations.
Or their vote early or on election day, right?
Yeah, early or on election day. And then a lot of people said their polling locations changed as well. So that was good to get the new information out to them about their current polling place. And then also we got some people that were out-of-state students that wanted to sign up and vote in West Virginia. We were able to get them registered for that as well.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for that. Yeah, I know that there were students who felt like, nope, I don't have a West Virginia ID. so I can't participate. But I think one of the things that really stood out to us is that we want people throughout all this process, we want students to exercise their, civic duty, right? Yeah, we definitely want students to be able to, be able to show up. And so we helped guide them through that. Vitria, what was your main takeaway from yesterday?
My main takeaway, so like students, like they're not informed about a lot of things. So like I felt like it was our duty to kind of like reach out to them, because like otherwise a lot of people tried to like shy away from the table, and we were like, hey, like, are you registered to vote? Like we started the conversation with them. So like there's just like that friendly engagement to get students involved in things. So yes, that was like a big takeaway, is like interactions of people that were signing up to register.
Yeah, I think you all did a great job of being like personable and making people feel comfortable enough to kind of go through a very new process with you all. You all did a great job with that. Vitria, I don't think I get to introduce you, but this is Miss Natalie Tennant is with us. She is the previous Secretary of State, a role that is just crucial to our democracy, and she has just continued her work. Natalie, do you have any questions for Vitria?
Yes. What kind of, like, did people think that they had to be registered now, or were they thinking, oh, I want to wait until there is an election? And most of them were registering in West Virginia, right?
Yes, most of them were registering in West Virginia. I think we had like one or two people that were like, oh, I want to wait until there's an election. But most people, they signed up to register.
Okay, that's good. Because I was just telling Takaya, I thought having a Zoom like this in 2023, as opposed to 2 weeks before an election in 2024, is important. One, because you have to be in West Virginia, you have to be registered 21 days before the election, although we're trying to change that with same day voter registration. And I think it's important that people see that. And it's interesting. Sally Roberts says that she checks all the time, especially right before election, to make sure that she's still registered. And she goes on that govotewv.com. And she had a question to Kaya about why it's important or change or update their registration. Did you find any of that, Vitria, that someone needed to update? Did they realize they needed to update or change it? Or were they straight up getting registered?
Most people were just getting registered. I don't think anyone had to update or change their registration yesterday.
Do you remember the girl at the end? She was there was actually a girl at the end that did need to update it. I know everyone was multitasking, but that was important. And sometimes that is a big thing with students because they're registered back home. We didn't have too much of that yesterday. I think we were getting a lot of very, very new voters. But that is something that is pretty common with students, especially as they're getting more experienced. And we don't want them to miss out because they can't. It's not reasonable to sometimes drive 4.5 hours back to home or just simply to vote. So every once in a while, and probably as we get closer, you'll see more of a need for updates to registration as well.
Yeah, I mean, and that's part of the answer to that question from Sally, is why do people need to update and check on it? Because especially for students, we're focusing on students today, is you may be in an apartment right now in the fall of 2023, and then school starts in August of 24, you move to a new apartment, and you could be in a different precinct, in a different district, you may get your driver's license changed. So those are some reasons that people update. And it's always just good to keep track of it. As another, adult thing to do.
Yep. Yep. Well, thank you so much, Vitria. I know that you have another class coming up, and I just appreciate everything that we were able to do yesterday. Please tell your members that it was great, and send them our gratitude, and we will stay connected as we continue to, fight for our democracy. Thanks,
yes,
Vitria.
thank you for being a part of everything with us yesterday, and then having me on here today to talk a little bit about what we did yesterday. Honestly, I enjoyed it. It was really fun.
And
awesome.
Always, if you have suggestions that you see, Takaya, as she said earlier, I mean, she's been around the state. She takes the information, the experience that you have and that she has, and brings it back to see how we might be able to improve processes or fight to improve processes.
Absolutely. Awesome. Thank you so much, Vitria, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you so much. You guys have a great day.
Thank you. It's always helpful to have these busy students give us a bit of their time. We work our way into their schedules for sure. Thanks, you all. Thanks for all the encouragement in the chat. Super helpful. Any other thoughts that you want to share before I kind of get to a closing?
I think, as we said, continue to listen and involve ourselves. And a lot of folks who are the attendees on here, are part of organizations that I know that we don't exclude people. And I love that you are leading the way on this. I think we're doing it well in West Virginia. There are concerns that I have that we need to be vigilant about. And it's like I'm speaking to the choir here. Like another example is, we're talking about voter registration a lot. And the ways, it's like we always should be looking, you don't just make one positive reform and say, oh, that's it, we got this. That's what's so interesting about election administration. It's a bunch of different pieces. Like I might have the wherewithal to go and get registered to vote, or have a stamp to be able to mail something, or even Ryan, for that matter, who had, who was turned away, went physically himself, and then went back to vote. Not everybody has that. And I always want people to remember, if you see someone waiting on a bus, ask yourself, how's that person getting to the polling place? Or how did that person get registered to vote? We live in a state where we ask people for, can I get a ride here? Can I get a ride to the doctor's office? Can I get a ride to the grocery store? And sometimes you may get one ride a week, and you're not necessarily getting that ride and asking to go to the county clerk's office or to a polling place. That's why vote by mail ballots are so important in a rural area like this. And I just want us to remember those things, that it takes us all working in all different parts. Like you have the pulse of the young people. I might have ideas from national groups. I see that Margaret and Sally and Betty and Julie that are on here have other different areas where we pull in, and that's what I'm think is so important. And then back to the point of the electronic voter registration. Electronic Registration Information Center. It's ERIC. And we fought really hard. Julie was in on that, and so many in the legislature, like from 2013 to 2015, when we finally showed everyone this was important to have interstate cooperation and collaboration to be able to check and see if someone's registered here or in New Mexico. And now the current Secretary of State wants to take that away. You know, he's sending out a lot of press releases about how he stopped people from voting twice. But you know what he used to do that? That was Eric. Like if someone was trying to register to vote in New Mexico and in West Virginia, that was because of the Electronic Registration Information Center. And now he's throwing that out. And, you know, he wants to praise himself about taking people off the rolls. Well, now he doesn't have that anymore. And it's going to be a concern coming up in 2024. And we as an organization, as a group, as different entities need to keep up with that and really push to get us back into that organization.
Yeah, thank you for that insight. These are the challenges that we are facing, a lot of what you mentioned. And we have to continue to organize and mobilize to address these things. And we can do that by legislation. We can do that by meeting with our elected officials. And we can also do that by getting good folks in office. And so we will keep on pushing. I wanted to add to one other thing that you said about that everyone kind of brings a different perspective. These really big things such as environmental justice, abortion access, you know, clean elections. These are like things that are really kind of at the top, for the most part, of at the front of young people's minds. And they're getting fired up about these things when they are registering to vote with us, with Young West Virginia, as we are helping them through the basics and fundamentals of civic engagement, getting registered, knowing what that looks like, you know, when to go, what to expect in the mail. It's always great to have folks that could be right beside of us saying, these are things to vote for. Students are really connected and fired up about that. So anytime, we have no monopoly on democracy work. So if anyone wants to collaborate with the Young West Virginia Power Building Movement, feel free to reach out to me. And I can get you connected either with students or other folks, you know, that work with our organization. I'll put my email in the chat. And I just thought I would close this out. We've covered like a lot of the things that I wanted to get to, but looking ahead, we are still pushing for the Freedom to Vote Act. It was once the For the People Act, and it was revised, and it's kind of a whole new thing of its own in a way. And so some of the things that are included in that are expanded early voting days, bans on gerrymandering, increased access to polling locations, and making Election Day a national holiday. So these are the things that we are going to continue to push for. We got to push and meet with Senator Manchin's folks this summer as West Virginians around the table. Kathy Ferguson, Leanne Williams, and myself, and some other folks got to just continue to stress the importance of West Virginians getting behind voter reform through the For the People Act. So we will continue registering folks to vote, making voting plans with students, updating registration, and collaborating with all who want to see those things grow as we do. So I am super appreciative of everything we got into today. Thank you so much for joining us. Thanks, everyone.